What we have here is a failure to communicate.
You're damn right.
That's the best line of the movie, right?
Well, yeah, that is the line of the movie.
Yeah, I didn't realize that line was from this movie.
Me either, and I've heard it before in a lot of other movies and shows.
In, like, everyday life.
Yeah, and I didn't know.
Who would have known?
Even the music.
The music was also surprising to me. A lot of this music is really good.
Yeah. I'd heard the theme before, and I just never knew what movie it was, and then hearing it this, I'm like, oh, okay. Now I get it.
It finally makes sense.
It makes sense, and you know what? I think we need to help our audience make sense of what we're talking about.
Yes, because we are the Film Club Podcast. That's right, the Film Club Podcast, where every week the movie couple talks about movies. I'm Dean.
I'm Boo.
And this month, we're going through Newvember. So that's movies you've never seen before that are new to your hosts, and we talk about it. And the movie we're talking about this week is...
Cool Hand Luke.
Yes, Cool Hand Luke, starring Paul Newman, George Kennedy, and directed by Stuart Rosenberg in a directorial debut, I believe.
Is it?
It's either his directorial debut or his, first three. It's very early in his career as a director.
Yeah, I saw that he did a lot of TV.
A lot of TV.
So it's a good mix of TV and movies, and it's interesting if it is his directorial. I mean, this is a banger to be your first film.
I mean, it was nominated for, I think, 4 Oscars. 2 acting Oscars, a screenplay Oscar, and I think film or director. It was nominated for a lot this year.
I don't think it was nominated for Best Film. I think it was a thing where Paul Newman was nominated. It was, actors and screenwriting, but it didn't get the Best Picture.
Which, a little surprising?
Yeah, because this was a really good movie.
It was very, very good. But granted, this also came out in a stacked year. This movie comes out in 1967. You want to know what other movies came out that year?
Sure.
In the Heat of the Night, which won Best Picture that year.
Yeah.
Sidney Poitier, Roger Tigers, very good movie.
Yeah.
Also, The Graduate. Dustin Hoffman. Kind of one of the most influential films of the New Hollywood era.
I mean, you went through a phase where you were watching that movie every week.
That movie is so good. But the other movie that came out this year was Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, with Warren Beatty and...
Faye Dunaway.
Yeah.
The movie that is officially credited as starting the New Hollywood era.
That's right.
Kind of a strong year. But Cool Hand Luke is a pretty good movie. It's pretty good. Kind of a really good movie.
It is, and we were having our pre-recording talk, and both of us were like, you know what this movie feels like? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh my god. This movie feels like the prototype of Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
Paul Newman is playing Jack Nicholson from Cuckoo's Nest. Jack Nicholson's a little bit more crazy and manic, but they're the same kind of character. They're bringing hope to this hopeless world. The collective group of guys in each movie have their own little quirks and knacks and whatever. And yeah, and the villain is just society, corporatization, people, the system, man.
Yeah.
I think I like Cuckoo's Nest better, but this is a really good movie.
Yeah, because I think the entirety of the movie we're in the prison. Apart from just the very beginning where we see why he gets arrested.
And the times he escapes.
But the majority is in this prison, kind of like with Cuckoo's Nest where we're in the facility. But I feel like there's just so many characters in Cuckoo's Nest. In this one, it's like, you get breakaway characters in this film, but it's all about Luke.
It's a very tight cast.
Yeah.
Because I believe the main cast for the movie is not that many people.
No.
There's 5 people that are speaking roles that are very important to the story. But the rest of them are really bona fide extras. Harry Dean Stanton is in this movie, which a young Harry Dean Stanton is kind of wild.
Yeah.
You have Dennis Hopper in this movie, and they're playing supporting roles in the chorus of people.
And we just talked about Harry Dean Stanton in Escape from New York.
Also, we talked about Dennis Hopper last year when we did Giant, which I think was his first movie. Or it was an early movie, because he did Rebel Without a Cause before that.
Yeah, he did Rebel Without a Cause before Giant. So yeah, it was interesting to see him, and they're like, oh my god, Dennis Hopper's in it. And where is he on the list? Blind Dick played by Richard Davalos.
Mm-hmm.
He was in East of Eden with James Dean.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he plays his older brother, Aaron.
Ooh, is the picture for his Wikipedia from East of Eden?
Yes, it is.
Of course it is. I love this era of movies, like that mid to late 50s into like the 60s, like basically right before New Hollywood came out, where you see a lot of these actors who are transforming from the studio system into what would eventually become New Hollywood, and they all intermingle a lot.
Oh, it's a trip. It's like, oh, I know you from this movie and this movie, and you're with him in this movie? Like, what?
Because there's still that holdover from the studio system where if you worked for a studio, you worked on everything from that studio. You made like 6 movies a year.
Yeah.
What is it? George Kennedy, who won supporting actor for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He did 4 movies this year. And one of them was The Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good run. Also, something else, because this is the first time I've seen it. This was my pick for Newvember.
My first time watching too.
I always thought this was a Western.
I
thought
mean,
the word Cool Hand Luke was like, oh, he's a gunslinger. Yeah.
Well, I mean, also from like the promotional posters that we have where he's just, chilling and he's got his feet kicked up. It's the same as James Dean and Giant.
Another movie I thought was an out-and-out Western.
Yeah, so it's like, I can see, where you would get that impression. And I was kind of in the same boat where I'm like, this could be a Western. He could be a cowboy that's in prison. What did this cowboy do? No, he's just a cool guy.
Yeah, and also the movie takes place in, like, the 50s.
Yeah.
Another weird thing, because when the movie's talking about it, I don't know if they ever say out loud what year it is, but they mention that he's a war hero, and I'm like, is Paul Newman supposed to be a Nam vet? Is that what this is? And I found out later that it's he's a World War II vet.
Yeah, this is before Nam, so it would have to be Second World War. He just has like a laundry list of just accolades. He's got like 3 Purple Hearts,
a Medal of Valor, I think a Silver Star,
and even his fellow inmates kind of look at him like, "You really? That's you? You're decorated and you're in here with the rest of us?"
Yeah, and we should probably tell people what the movie's actually about, right? See, everybody, we're doing it early. We're doing it in the first 10 minutes this time.
I mean, I think some people would appreciate we just ramble, and then like maybe 50 minutes in, let us give you the plot of this movie.
Let's let people know what the movie's about.
Yeah.
But this movie is about Luke Jackson, played by Paul Newman, who is brought in on charges of vandalism of municipal property for destroying parking meters. And after the trial, he is sent down to a hellish southern work farm. There he meets up with Dragline, the captain, Shorty, the group of prisoners that are being oppressed by the captain, the bosses, and the man with no eyes. The cruel Mephistopheles that lords over them as they work the roads.
Just creepy.
Very creepy. And while he is down there, his rebellious attitude, winning charm, and Paul Newman smile brings hope and some semblance of freedom to this hell. And the movie goes from there. You can kind of beat it out from that point, but that's the gist of the movie.
Yeah.
I do recommend people watch it. I can open with that. But what about this movie did you like?
I liked everything. I mean, apart from...
Very descriptive.
Apart from, hey, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the experience. The only thing I didn't enjoy was seeing, Paul Newman get roughed up.
He gets the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah, and it's not just like, oh, once or twice kind of thing. No, throughout the movie, he is constantly getting his ass handed to him.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't give up.
No, and I love that about his character, that, especially like when they have the boxing match, and he's just getting the shit knocked out of him, and it's just, he keeps standing, and everyone's telling him, stay down, and that's just not him.
And I love that scene, because it's an early scene in the movie, probably the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, because I think he's still fairly new to the prison.
Yeah, and that's like him earning the respect, and that's that scene. And I really like that scene because as they're fighting, because it's Dragline and Luke, and they're beating each other up, and the whole crowd is cheering. They're like, oh, whoop his ass, kick his ass. And Luke falls down, and he keeps getting back up, and slowly the crowd is like, man, this isn't fun anymore.
This isn't right.
Can you stop, Luke? Just lay down.
Leave him alone.
You ain't got no bitch in your blood. We get it. Just lay down, it's fine, it's over. And he just doesn't. He just keeps moving forward. He just keeps getting the shit kicked out of him. Because there ain't no quit in Luke.
No.
And that scene really encapsulates him as a character. And I think that's probably one of the better scenes in the movie.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, apart from the scenes where, he's running away. And I love those scenes where it's just, he's outsmarting the dogs, he's outsmarting the cops. Then they drag him back. And it's just kind of like, Luke's back, all right, cool, whatever. And he goes back to working on the line. And it's like, I'm going to do it again later.
Oh, of course.
I'll give them a couple of days and I'm out.
And that's, I think, a great part about the movie is Paul Newman. Because Paul Newman's great in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen too many Paul Newman movies. But the ones that I have seen him in, he's phenomenal.
Paul Newman is so weird of a movie star when I think about it. Because he didn't pass away all that long ago. I think he lived up until like 2008-ish, I think.
Yeah, 2008.
So he was a movie star his whole life.
Yeah.
Because he did The Hustler back in like the 50s. He did Cool Hand Luke in 67, 69 Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He did The Sting in like 73, I think.
He was, I was looking through there, he did stuff like Cars, so he did stuff a lot
He
recently.
did voiceover work near the end, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, he was working all the way up through the end.
I got a question. What makes Paul Newman a movie star? Because there's a difference between like an actor, a celebrity, and a movie star. And Paul Newman's a movie star.
He's a movie star. He just has that it factor. There's just something about him where it's just, you're attractive, you're interesting, you're a good actor. Mm-hmm. He's got the whole package, and I think that's what kind of seals him in as being a movie star, because he's just got so many different, elements and shades to him that it's just like, yeah, I keep learning new stuff about you, and I'm loving you more and more.
Mm-hmm. Also, it kind of helps. He has a very unique look to him.
Yeah.
Because you look at him, he's a handsome man, but he's not like so handsome that it's like unreal. No. He's not like a Ryan Gosling where you're like, are you actually people? Were you made in a lab?
He's just that beautiful.
It's weird. It's weird. But yeah, Paul Newman, watching him in this movie, because there's the scene where it's right after his mother passes away, and he sings Plastic Jesus on the banjo, and I'm like, this is the Oscar scene. Yeah, I can see it. He's like, he starts tearing up, he's choking up, and he's trying to play through it. And it's such a beautiful scene and a great display of him as an actor.
Yeah, and actually that scene's kind of interesting because Harry Dean Stanton taught Paul Newman how to play the banjo for that scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a thing where the director, Stuart Rosenberg, wanted it to look, real, and Paul Newman being the same, he's like, yeah, I want to play this for myself. I don't want it to be a voiceover or recording.
We don't want to ADR it later.
Yeah, so it was a thing where he's like, I'll learn it, and he was just having a hard time picking it up because the banjo is not an easy instrument to learn. You know that.
It's the fastest instrument on the planet. That's not even a joke. Like, the notes per minute you can do on a banjo, it's faster than any other instrument.
Yeah, so it was the thing where he was struggling, and I guess Paul Newman and the director ended up getting into a couple of arguments because he just wasn't picking it up. It was delaying recording. And I think the last day that they were filming the movie, that's when they got the Plastic Jesus scene where he was just sitting there playing and crying. And I'm like, yeah. When I saw the movie, I'm like, this would be on the roll, on the cut, going to the Academy to, this is, for your consideration.
It's surprising to me that he missed out on Best Actor for this movie, because I think he's nominated like 4 or 5 times. He wins eventually for Color of Money. As a Best Supporting Actor, I believe. But I'm surprised that he didn't win for Cool Hand Luke. Granted, I think this is also the year I think Sidney Poitier is nominated, and I think Dustin Hoffman's nominated, Warren Beatty's nominated. Again,
It's a stacked card that year.
Yeah, Cool Hand Luke suffers from coming out in one of the most stacked years in cinema.
Yeah, so I think it's a thing where it's like, I'd be happy with whoever wins, because there's just so many good actors that are up for, the award. And Paul Newman does put up an Oscar-worthy performance in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Where else do we want to move on to?
Well, I think we have to talk about the cast of characters that we meet at the prison. Because we only get Luke by himself in just that opening sequence when he's cutting off the heads of the
Parking meters. I
Parking
know, they
meters.
don't exist anymore.
Well, no, I wanted to call them mailboxes, and I'm like, no, he's not out there cutting off, mailboxes. He's out there cutting parking meters. And I'm like, why? And the scene just goes. He's just, working it, cutting off those meters one by one.
And actually, that's a good question. Why does he do it? Actually, why does he do a lot of things in this movie?
I think they ask him when he gets to the prison, right? And he said,
Had a small town, needed something to do.
He's like, I was drunk, I thought it was funny. And I was like, maybe one. But then he keeps going, and you're seeing that he's struggling, with those last few.
He's taking down like 6 of them. I think that one goes into the theme. He's very anti-establishment.
Yeah.
Like, a parking meter is one of the pettiest things of the system.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I have to pay to park my car, and if I don't, I get a ticket on a public street.
And if I park my car in front of one that's broken, I'm getting a ticket.
Yeah, so he's breaking these things. He's breaking down these pieces of the system in, like, his small way. And then when he goes to the prison, he's, again, being this rebellious person that's trying to, rebel against the system. And eventually leads to him getting got.
Yeah, the town that they filmed that in, they actually kept the parking meter poles like that, where they were cut for the movie.
Oh, really?
So you could go and you could visit, and it was just a bunch of, cut poles. And I was just like, okay, this is from Cool Hand Luke. Awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know if that's still there, but...
I don't know. I mean, the movie's coming up on 60 years old. It's like 50-something, I know that.
It's been around for a while.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up about that, because there's a lot of themes in the movie.
Yeah.
He's very anti-establishment. There's a whole, like, religious theme of him as, like, a redeemer, as a Christ figure. There's a lot of references as the prison as a hellscape.
Yeah, I was very shocked. I was like, okay, we're just gonna get this prison movie, and, like, these inmates, they band together and they form, like, a family, and I was like, oh no, like, we're getting very religious in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean... How many prisons movies have you seen? I used to be on a kick because I watched Prison Break as a kid, and I thought that was cool.
I mean, you're always on a kick of things, so I'm sure I haven't seen as many as you have.
I mean, like, the ones I've seen are, like, the popular ones, like Great Escape and Escape from Alcatraz and, like, a few other ones. But this one feels really unique because it is very open with the religious allegory and religious stuff. And also, Paul Newman, Luke, is in for the most petty reason.
Yeah.
Where it's like...
That should be maybe, I don't know, maybe like a week or 2 in jail, and you pay fines and possibly parole, but it's like 2 years in prison?
Yeah, like in Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne's in for murder 1, and he's like staring down 25 years. Paul Newman, he's in there for... messing up telephone pole or light or poles. He's in there for poles. And then he's like got a 2-year stretch, and he still escapes prison after they're like, hey, if you try and escape the camp, that's 5 years tacked on to the end of your sentence. And he does it 3 times.
Yeah. And the 3rd, they tell him, if you escape, we're just going to kill you.
Yeah, we're going to kill you as soon as if we find you and you're running out, past the yard, we're just going to shoot you dead. And the other thing is, like, Dragline. He goes with him his final time on the escape. And even Dragline's like, I was only staring down another 8 months, a year, and I would have gone home.
So close.
Now I got another 5 years on my sentence just because I couldn't contain myself when I saw the car going by. And that's something interesting. We are so desperate for freedom, even when the consequences are incredibly dire, we'll still go for it.
Well, I mean, considering, the conditions that they live in and the livelihoods that they have, where it's just, you're working this line, and I think they get, 1 day a week or half a day?
I think it's like the weekends. They work Monday through Friday, where they just tar a road, clear roadside, break rocks, dig trenches.
It's not like other prison movies or shows where they're in their cell the majority of the time, and then, okay, maybe they're gonna have some duties around the prison. Like, no, this is hard, laboring, backbreaking work.
Yeah, this is the old school, here's your hammer and here's your pick, and you're gonna dig an irrigation trench for 400 miles.
While being on a chain gang, so you're not moving too far, you're not moving too comfortably.
Yeah, and this also kind of reminded me of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
Because they're on a chain gang.
Mm-hmm.
And I think is it John Turturro? I believe it's John Turturro. He makes a comment, when George Clooney finally admits, he's like, yeah, I wasn't in here for robbing any banks. I was in here for faking a medical license. I just needed to get out so I can blah, blah, blah. And John Turturro's like, I was going to get out in 8 months. Now, they're going to put me back in for 32 years. I'll be 64 when I get out of prison because of you. And that's Dragline. Is Dragline like the institutionalized man at this point where he's now just looking for ways to make his stay longer?
Yeah, it's kind of this thing where you're, okay, I'm gonna get out. And then, that realization, well, what am I gonna do when I get out? I'm kind of used to what I'm doing here every day. I've got friends.
Brooks from Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, so it's just, you kind of feel bad for him where it's just, yeah, I'm not ready to go yet. I'll add on some more time. It'll be okay.
Yeah, because Dragline runs the prison.
He runs the prison. He can't read.
Yes, which is a weird facet, because because throughout the movie he's always just telling people, hey, read this for me, or whatnot. And that adds a lot to his character, because now he's not just, he runs this prison. He's somebody who's really uneducated, and we don't really know why he's in prison.
No, his character's never really explained or explored.
Yeah, but it starts to feel like, he's like somebody who's in prison because he's uneducated, it's something dumb. Or it's like, has he been in here he didn't know how to read when he was like 17, and he's just been in and out of prison for so long he just never learned to read?
Could be.
Because this does take place in the South.
Yeah.
And
it's in Florida.
Yeah, it takes place in like Florida, and in that part of Florida that's still the South, because what is it, like the northern part of Florida, it's just Alabama with a beach. Yeah, look, Florida, whatever, that's basically Florida.
I've never been. I know you loved Florida and the humidity when you went.
Oh, Florida was rough. Oh my god, they had 20-minute monsoons. That was the rainy season. But the thing is this takes place in like the 50s, and Dragline looks in the movie to be what, in his 40s, 50s, or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pin him. It's like, could be younger, could be older, could be in the middle somewhere.
We're in this stage of Hollywood where every man looked like he was either 22 or 57, and there was no in between.
Yeah, it's like, he's playing a father of 4, and the oldest is like 21, and then he's like, oh no, I'm really 25 at the time. It's like, you, sir, you're 25.
Well, that's the thing. That was like the James Dean thing, right?
You,
yeah, I think for a lot of people, you watch him play the guy in Rebel Without a Cause, and you're like, man, he looks a little old to play a teenager. Like, I don't know. Is he like 30 something? Like, how old is he? Then he's like 25 or whatever.
24 or 23, somewhere in there.
And it's like, what?
But we've talked about that before, where, this, era, a lot of people looked a lot older than they were, and it was just like...
The booze and cigarettes, man.
Yeah,
the booze and cigarettes.
That'll do that. I mean... That was the thing for the longest time. You'd watch, a sitcom and people are smoking, and it's just like, don't do that.
Oh God!
Just put them down.
Who was it? There was an actress, and I don't know who it was, who wanted her voice to be more like, have like a nice raspy, deeper tone, so she smoked like 3 packs a day. I can't remember who it was.
I have no idea who that is.
It might have been like Katharine Hepburn, for all I know, but there was one. It was a famous actress who wanted to make her voice sound a certain way because she thought it was more attractive.
Yeah.
So she smoked like 3 packs a day to get it. But I'd have to look it up. I don't know. Well, I'll find it later.
And for people that want a raspy voice, do not smoke 3 packs a day.
It's a bad idea. But let's hit some I guess the standouts in the supporting cast, because Dragline, played by George Kennedy, he's the big standout.
Yeah.
And really good actor. Because he's in a lot of stuff after this. He's in the Naked Gun series.
Yeah, I went through his filmography and I was just like, wow, you did a lot of stuff in your career too.
Yeah, and he passed away in like 2016.
Yeah, recently.
Which, again, he was like 91. And the guy he was an Ernest Borgnine type, just worked all the way to the end.
That's right. Strong stock, this generation.
It was good stuff. And then who else is in there? You have Dennis Hopper, who plays Babalugats, the Bat Bamboo.
And he's constantly, like, doing the Donald Duck thing and singing, and they're just, smacking around like, shut up already.
He is playing the goofball,
mm-hmm.
and that's another thing. What is his deal? Because he is... granted, I think Dennis Hopper in this is actually like 30, but he looks like he's 17.
Yeah, he looks really young. I think he's... Who knows what he did? It would be nice if they kind of elaborated, like when Luke gets there and everyone's kind of talking and, oh, I'm in for this, or, I've done that. Because, I mean, he just comes across as, like, the annoying younger brother. Like, especially when they have the shower scene. And they're all in there, and he's making, noises, and they're like, you're blocking the hot water, move out of the way.
Is he, like, mentally ill, or
no, I think
deficient, or what?
No, I think he's just goofy.
He's just weird?
Yeah.
Because I also noticed that I don't know if he talks in the movie. I don't know if he has, like, real lines or dialogue with other people.
Not that I can remember. I mean, we both just saw this for the first time last night, so...
Yeah.
It's kind of hard, you're trying to absorb everything. I think he says, something, maybe a line in the movie. But
well, I think he has lines, but I don't think he has dialogue with people. I think people refer to him as like, Babalugats, do something, and he says like a thing, and then he does the Donald Duck voice and kind of like fucks off.
Yeah.
Or somebody else is having a conversation, and he's in the background, does his Donald Duck thing, and then he just disappears. Also, the first time he did it, I legit thought like my stream was fucking up. I thought, like, the sound cut out, and, like, or something messed up.
No, I was just kind of like, what? Donald Duck? And I was just like, oh, okay, he's just doing that.
Well, the thing is, when it happens for the first time, it's, like, them in the yard and they're walking, and it's just the Donald Duck screech.
Yeah.
With no one in the frame.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, where did that come from? And it's not for, like, 5 minutes later till you see him doing it. And it's like, that's really weird. That's like a weird like direction thing where it's like when they're composing the movie where they set it in. That's just like a weird thing. Which this is Rosenberg's like first movie, so it's fine.
You also had your gripes with some of the cinematography in this movie.
It was one shot. There was like one or two shots that I thought were really oddly composed. One of them was the tar scene when they're going through, and the whole thing is Luke rallies the crew to finish the tarring the road because he knows if they do it fast, then they just get to chill for however long.
I think they said they got off 2 hours early.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, 2 hours where we don't have to do anything. And it's just like, yeah,
2 hours of free time.
Free time, yeah. Which also, their free time, playing cards, having a cold drink.
Playing music. It's really interesting that when the prison's not, working them on the road, it's like a summer camp.
That's the vibe that I was getting. It was like, a summer camp for like the bad boys. So it's like, okay, we're going to send them off to the summer camp where they're going to, conform and learn to behave. But then you have some of the counselors where I was like, well, I kind of like the kids, I'm going to talk to them like,
We're going to get the kids together. We're going to rally in the third act and win the big, camp playoff at the end.
Yeah, because you have the orderly, that they talk to and, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to get down. Yeah, go ahead. And just kind of walks through them, gets in on some of the bets. Even the cook gets in on some of the bets. And it's just like...
that's another thing. The prison as it functions, it really doesn't feel like a normal prison movie, right?
No.
Because the tropes of most prison movies is it's like, oh, the guy comes in and there's the one guy who's like super violent. He's stabbing people, Oh, the showers. Oh, it's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And this is way different. It does feel like, oh no, they're like at a summer camp.
Yeah.
The hard parts, like the real like fucked up like sadist stuff is all on the road.
And the box.
You sit too long in the morning, that's the box. You spill your drink, go in the box.
You forget your pants, in the box. You sit on my newspaper, in the box.
That's the comedy bit in the movie. That's when the movie's like, look, this is old Hollywood filmmaking here. Every movie has to have a little bit of a comedy in it.
And I was like, how long are they going to stretch this out with how many things can we do before we go in the box?
That guy monologues for so goddamn long. Oh my god. Because they are being... Luke and the crew that he's being, arrested with, they go in and they're getting changed, and the orderly guy just goes this laundry list of shit, and it's weird minutia, and it's weird bullshit, and none of it is, like, being explained. He's like, when you change your sheets, if your clean sheet goes in the dirty bin, then you go to the box.
You forget your number, you go in the box.
And he's like, any questions? And he's like, if we ask questions, do we go in the box? And he's like, and that's the box right there for back talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shit like that. And the box is like,
the hole.
The hole. Yeah, it's this big ass like outhouse looking thing where you go in with a bucket and another bucket, and you're in like a gown, and you're just in there for however long they want you to. And that's a really like sadistic thing to do.
Yeah.
The other thing, like, let's talk about, like, I guess the prison for a second. Because, yeah, the prisoners, they're in, like, this summer camp, but it's still very oppressive. The captain is almost, like, completely removed from running it. It's just the bosses that are doing it. And at first you're like, oh, the captain seems kind of goofy and weird. Maybe the bosses are just cruel. Maybe the captain's, going to be the hero in, like, the third act and kind of, like, fix everything.
And then he's not. And
then he's like, we here got a failure to communicate. And then he beats the shit out of Luke. And then you're like, oh, no, I guess he's the evil one. And you have the man with no eyes.
Yeah, who's very creepy.
Yeah, is it Boss Godfrey? Is that his name?
I have no idea.
It really sucks because there's so many people whose name are like Boss Paul, Boss Shorty, Boss Keen.
Well, I mean, also some of the pictures that they use, we're looking at IMDb right now, and it's just, they either have headshots from people in their prime or their most current images, and it's just like, it's hard to tell. It's like, well, are you this person or are you someone else in the cast? It's like, who are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Okay, I just checked. It is Boss Godfrey.
Godfrey, okay.
And he wears these mirror sunglasses so you can't see his eyes. He never says a word. The only thing he does is he raises his cane and somebody brings him his rifle.
Yeah.
And he is an ace with that rifle. And it's so scary and unsettling because he'll shoot like animals or critters or whatever that are hanging out or like trying to like get away from them, and he's like, nothing gets away from Boss Godfrey.
Yeah, it's just, animals in their own surrounding, living their own lives, and he's just like, no, I'm gonna kill it just because I can.
Because he doesn't want them to go free.
No, and he's just, this sadistic, scary human being.
Yes, he's not even human. Actually, that's something that I wanted to bring up. So much of the prison guards are inhuman people.
Yeah.
Like, all the bosses on the road, there's nothing humanizing about them. They're all either incredibly cruel or incredibly disassociated from what's going on. I mean, you have the one boss, the one prison guard, who tells Luke, I'll say a prayer for you, for your mom because she passed.
Yeah.
And he's putting him in the box like, look, Luke, I'm sorry, but this is my job. It's just is how it is. And that's it. He's the only one that's even slightly humanized to show any semblance of humanity.
That was also weak, putting him in the box because, oh, you might run because your mom died. It's like, no, you guys have been itching to put him in the box for any reason.
And this is the first time he gave him a reason.
Yeah, it's like, let's, throw you in here because you might possibly run to her funeral. It's like, no. I think he would have been totally okay in the prison. And then this was just kind of, the spark to, well, if they're going to do this to me, fuck it, let's act up and do stuff.
Because that's the turning point.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because after that, that's when he's finally, like, tries to escape, tries to really push the boundaries of what the prison wants him to do.
Yeah.
Like, he starts, sass talking them. That's how they say it. He starts sassing them a lot more. He gets to the point where they're like, you're going to start digging a ditch after you've already worked all day, and we're just going to try and break you. And what he does is literally how people define, madness or hell or whatever.
Yeah.
Where you're just doing the same thing over and over again. It has no purpose, and you just can't stop. And he's digging a ditch, then fills the ditch up, and then digs the ditch back out, and then fills the ditch back up over and over again, and that finally breaks him.
Yeah.
And
that scene was so hard to watch.
Because Paul Newman sells it so hard. Because you see Paul Newman, and you're like, oh, this is like a cool guy. He's, Cool Hand Luke, Oh, he's Butch Cassidy. Oh, he's Billy Badass over here. He ain't gonna break. He's too strong for him. And then he fucking breaks down. He starts to cry. He grovels at the boss's feet. He's asking him to not hit him anymore.
He's weeping.
He's weeping. And the whole group of prisoners look at him and they're like, shit, I don't think Luke's the one. I don't think Luke's the one that's actually gonna get us any good. And then they like all abandon him. And then right after that, he's, they're on the road again. They're like, Luke, fetch the water. And he's like, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. He starts trotting over and he becomes the bitch boy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he turned him into like a trained animal where it's like, okay, go fetch this, go fetch that, and he's excited. He shoots, what is it, like a snapping turtle, Godfrey, and then Luke, hops in the river to go get it, and he's like, oh, look, he's still biting down on the stick after you killed him. Isn't that cool? And it's just like, this is so not Luke. I'm like, what is going on here?
And then the reveal, it was not Luke.
That's I was like, oh, thank you.
It was all an act so Luke could get into position to steal all the keys out of the trucks and then steal a truck and disappear down the road. And that's, when Dragline jumps on and they disappear into the night and they're gone for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. It's a prison movie, and in a prison movie, the assumption for the most part is, oh, it's a prison escape movie.
Yeah.
Like, most prison movies end with somebody escaping.
Or dying.
Yeah. And this movie has both.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the same question we asked earlier. It's like, why does Luke escape? Because, again, he's only staring down 2 years. And by the time he escapes the first time, he's staring down, a year, maybe?
I think so.
So, why does he escape so much? Is it the themes of the movie that he's one of these people who can't be caged? Like McMurphy from Cuckoo's Nest, whose spirit's kind of so big, you can't keep them caged up, because you cage up the bird, it'll die, kind of thing.
I mean, the impression that I got was, okay, he's willing to do his time, he's making the most of his time there, and the other prisoners are, having a good time having him there. But it's just the thing where, you've done this to me, you've wronged me, now I must act up. And it's like, that's what I feel like we get from him, is just, okay, you've kind of pushed me to my wit's end, so I'm going to push you to yours, and I'm going to run, and if you catch me, I'll wait, and I'll do it again. And I'll do it again.
It's the defiant rebellion of the human spirit.
Yeah.
This is a good movie.
It is.
What else do we want to talk about?
I think we definitely have to talk about the egg scene.
The egg scene.
Now that you know what it is.
And I've now realized that I finally get that reference from Malcolm in the Middle when they're at military school.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what is it? There's an episode of Malcolm in the Middle where Malcolm's older brother Francis he's at military school, and they make a bet where he's like, I can eat 100 of the peeps. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
And they're like, no one can eat 100 peeps. They're like, there's so much sugar, and it's literally a line for line ripoff of the egg scene from Cool Hand Luke, except exchange eggs for peeps. And I'm like,
well, which came first?
The chicken or the peep?
Exactly.
And it's kind of a hilarious bit of action in the movie, because it's such a low stakes thing. It's a bet on if Luke can eat 50 eggs in an hour.
Hard-boiled eggs.
Yes, which was a point of contention. You didn't say it was hard-boiled. You didn't say he didn't have to eat the shell. Like, that was...
I mean, these guys are stuck in prison. They will bet anything. Why not have the newcomer, eat 50 eggs? What is it going to do to me? nothing. I might lose a couple bucks, but this guy's stomach might explode like a watermelon. We don't know.
There's so many YouTube channels on YouTube that talk about the people's experiences in prison.
Yeah.
And I found this out. Gambling in prison, this shit 100% real.
Yeah.
There's one guy, I think it's the After Prison Show is the name of the YouTube channel. I saw like one or two of the videos. And in one of them he talks about somebody he knew as the Coffee Man.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you can't eat a whole, bag of coffee or a bag of espresso or whatever in an hour or whatever. Like, literally is the same stakes as this.
Yeah.
And he was like, absolutely. So he sits there with like a spoon and eats a whole bag of espresso in the hour. And the bet was literally, they were like, if I eat one bag of espresso, I get a bag of coffee from everyone else on the block.
Whew.
And he won. After he ate the whole bag of espresso in the hour, he washed it down by making another pot of espresso. A nice, warm cup of coffee to wash it down. Because the man...
He probably didn't sleep for like a month.
They called him the Coffee Man because he was addicted to his coffee. But this seems like a rather common thing for prisoners to make really weird bets to pass the time. Because what else are you going to do?
And you have people excited, oh, his stomach might explode open. And I'm like, I don't think it's going to burst open. I was like...
He's probably going to vomit, though.
Yeah. Which Paul Newman did.
He only had to eat 8 of them before he vomited.
Yeah, that was the thing where I was like, well, how many did he actually make? Because Paul Newman seems like the kind of guy where it's like, well, I'll see how many I could do. I'm not going to do 50, but I'll see what I could do. And I was like, oh, 8? And I'm like, maybe it was just the way that he was eating them, because it was like, puts the whole egg in there and, practically tries to swallow the whole damn thing.
Well, how many eggs could you eat?
Hard-boiled?
Yeah.
I think the most I've had is like 4.
Maybe the top end is only like 4 or 5? Because
I
don't like hard-boiled eggs.
No, I'm very aware you hate hard-boiled eggs. I love hard-boiled eggs. And I was like, could I eat 50? Probably not.
I think you would die.
I know. And that's what, everyone in the room was kind of hoping. They're like, oh, okay, he's either going to get sick, his stomach's going to explode, he's going to die. All right, I'll throw like a couple bucks in at it.
And I like that scene because it's one of those things where it's so dumb, but it builds and it's kind of compelling.
It's like the scene from Matilda. You've seen Matilda,
yes,
right?
Yes, with the chocolate cake. With the chocolate cake scene. Yeah. Another thing that's probably paying homage to Cool Hand Luke.
Cool Hand Luke, Cool Hand Bruce. Because Bruce finished the cake.
He did, because he's a badass.
Just like Luke.
Oh god, I know now. I want to see the sequel to Matilda where it's Cool Hand Bruce and it's him in like juvie with trench bolt now, and he's Cool Hand Luke. That's it. That's the movie. But with this, that scene does a lot because like Luke already kind of earned the respect of everyone after the fight, but I think after this he earned like some love from the crew.
And for him, this was just kind of like, well, we're bored. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. And that just shows how cool he is. It's never, he's being calculating or he's really trying. It's just, that's his demeanor. Yeah.
And at the end, where this is where we get the biggest obvious Christ symbolism. I speak English, I swear. Where after he's done eating 50 hard-boiled eggs and everybody walks away and they're like, oh my god, I can't believe he did it. Pay up, bitches. Woo, money, money, money. He's lying on the picnic table like splayed out like Christ on the cross.
He's even has his ankles crossed and I'm like, wow, they really framed this up and have him in a T basically. I'm like, wow, this is something.
And we get a lot of Jesus symbolism in the movie because the movie's trying to play Luke as a Christ figure. I mean, he sings, Plastic Jesus in it. I believe Harry Dean Stanton sings Grave Can't Hold My Body Down in the movie. And that it's like a lot of references to like spiritualism, Luke being kind of this saint, Luke coming into this hopeless place, coming into hell and bringing hope to all these people who are in hell, basically. Yeah. Because the prison and the road and everything, it all feels this very hellish landscape. Everything is so ungodly, cruel and hot and gross that they exist in, and everything they see that might give them a semblance of freedom or a semblance of hope or a semblance of something beyond the walls of this prison is something they can never reach. Like
it's just right there.
Like that's the girl scene.
Oh man, that scene was.
Did you watch that and you were like, so this is where the women leave the audience? I see.
I mean, I wasn't expecting that at all. I'm like, of course you have to throw in,
some ogling,
and also, another part of religion, temptation.
Yeah,
and that's how I was like, okay, we've got the temptation of this woman who goes out there and washes the car to rile them up. But I mean, this was just like...
Remember those Carl's Jr. commercial
Yes.
from the early 2000s where it was like...
the girls in the bikinis washing the cars and eating a burger at the same time on the car.
And just splashing it and it's all over their tits. And it's like, we know what you're doing here. Yeah. And that's the thing. Because the character, I think she's referred to as Lucille.
Yeah.
Because they're like pining over. It's like, anybody as pretty as that, with clothes as tight as that, you can only call her Lucille. And it's like, she doesn't even have a name.
Her name could have been like Joan,
Joanne,
Sarah,
Phyllis, for all I know. But that's the thing. They see this, beautiful woman, and she's cleaning this car or whatever. It's very, sexualized, very tantalizing, very, these guys have been in prison for so long. They ain't seen a woman in fucking years, some of them. So they're like, look, that's just on the other side of the glass. It's so close, yet so very, very far away. I love the follow-up scene where they all, like...
have to go to the bathroom.
Half of them are like, going to the bathroom here, boss. Yeah, going to the bathroom here, too, boss. Yeah, me too, boss. Like, sit the fuck down. I know what y'all going in there for.
That's what I was laughing. I was like, oh
that's
my
the sin
God.
y'all doing in there.
Well, I mean, yeah, you have temptation. Even the egg scene, that's, a sin. That's gluttony.
Yeah.
And it was just like, there's so many...
very religious things.
Religious symbolism things. It was just like, wow. I mean, it makes sense in a 60s movie, because in the 50s and the 60s, they're like, we're cool with this. You want to show religion, we're cool with this. And now it's kind of like, no, we gotta tone it down.
Well...
But I mean, coming in, it's like, I wasn't expecting it at all, and I don't think it takes away from the story.
No, because I think that's kind of the point of the story, a little bit. And, yeah, in the 50s and the 60s, religion was a really big part of, like, that was a lot of symbolism in movies was, hey, we want to, put some Christ imagery into the movie because it's, if we make the hero like a Jesus type, comes in and saves the people. Yeah, then the people are going to be on their side because, people love Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think people just got sick of the shtick, and the 70s, again, New Hollywood changed everything. All the heroes of the New Hollywood era became way more nuanced and way darker, and they changed a lot. But with this, it's a lot more on the surface.
Yeah, and
with everything.
Even the girl that does the car wash scene.
Yeah.
She came in, she saw the movie when it premiered, and she said in an interview that she was so embarrassed because she was told just to wash the car. And she's like, that's what I did. She's like, I washed the car. And she goes, and I thought it was weird, the day of filming, where I think it was the director and a producer or a writer, they asked her if she wanted to get stoned before she started washing the car so she could really get into it. And she's like,
the 60s.
She's like, no, but thanks. I'm just going to go wash the car.
Oh, the 60s were a different time.
And I was just like, what is going on here?
Oh, my Lord.
Also, you want to know how many eggs they had to make for that scene?
Oh, God. I don't know. Did they not make that many?
They made 200 hard-boiled
What the
eggs.
hell?
Well, I mean, you've got Dragline that's peeling for, his boy. My boy. He's
my boy Luke. Oh, my boy Luke out here. He gonna eat himself, not just 50, 100 eggs if he has to.
They're gonna be perfect eggs, and they had to make 200 so that every time they were peeled, they were perfect eggs. So the rest of the cast ate the eggs, because, you're not gonna let them go to spoil. You may as well,
Yeah, that's just crafties for the day.
Yeah, spread the love. Which turned into the next day of filming, everyone had gas. And that place just blew up.
Jesus.
That was like, yeah, help. It's like...
That's a funny thing, because the the movie feels like a studio film, right?
Yeah.
You know, Paul Newman, big cast, they got this built to sets or whatever. But watching it, I'm like, this really feels like kind of a nitty-gritty production.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's like, yeah, they have the sets, they have the talent, or whatever, but so much of it looks like it was sourced.
Yeah, it was shot in Stockton, so...
Yeah, it's just shot up in the California, Central California.
Yeah, so, you know, shot... I mean, not, like, up the road from the studios, but, you know, up, you know, more where there's more, like, farmland, so you
Very rural.
Yeah, so you could build, you know, practical sets where you have your prison facade and, you know, the interiors, and that's what it feels like. It feels like a very real place.
Yeah. And what is it? It was so real that I think a building manager, he's driving down the road and sees the prison set built up. And he's like, oh, that's strange. Must have been something from, you know, like an old farming thing or an old work camp or whatever. And let me go over and have a look at it. And he condemned it because, like, this ain't up to code. This whole place looks like some rundown prison. And they were like, oh, that's exactly what we were going for.
Then you have, you know, the producers and the actors. That's what we're doing. You know, we're pretending to be prisoners, yes.
But yeah, it's one of those funny things about this movie because it looks so much like a new Hollywood film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's surprising that this movie doesn't get the same kind of credit that, like, a Graduate, a Bonnie and Clyde gets, or an Easy Rider gets. Because, you know, right after this, Dennis Hopper goes from this movie and makes Easy Rider, like, the next year, and next 2 years, I think Easy Rider 68 or 69, I forget. But, you know, this is kind of like that last transition point between what old Hollywood studio filmmaking looked like to what new Hollywood filmmaking kind of looked like a few years later. And it's a really good movie. And that ending is kind of perfect.
Definitely, because we have him being, you know, this basically wild child where we see him, you know, with his mother, and it's just kind of, you know, her explaining, you know, well, you've always been this way, and that one time you brought home a girlfriend you were serious about, you were so boring, and, you know, we were glad when you got rid of her. So, you know, he comes from a wild background, and finally at the end he kind of, you know, comes full circle and talks to God, and he's like, okay, he's like, I accept it, you know, you've never really, you know, had me in the cards, and I've gone through a lot of struggles. I finally accept that this is my life.
Yeah, and as soon as he finally accepts his station, that is when he is stricken down by Godfrey. And
well, I mean, before that, it's a drag line, and he laughs, and he's like, of course God would send you to me.
Of course God would send the Judas.
Yeah, and that's even in an article that I read, they're like, yeah, dragline's Judas, and, you know, he sent up Jesus to, you know, get got by get got by Godfrey, who's just, you know, no chill.
Shoots him as soon as he gets to the window, and Luke gives his last, you know, middle finger. He's like, what we got here is a failure to communicate, and he gets shot.
I think I was as shocked of that scene as I was in Assault on Precinct 13 with the little girl.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Because you think, we're going to get, like, a dialogue. We're going to get, like, a back and forth. But the captain, Godfrey, the bosses, zero chill.
No.
They shoot him, they drag him out, and the state boys are like, all right, you can get it. We'll take him to the hospital. Like, no, we're going to take him back to the prison doctor. But, boss, that's an hour away. He's going to be dead by then. We'll take care of it. And they drive off, and as he drives off, he throws that Paul Newman smile out the back window at
Godfrey, because Godfrey gets strangled by Dragline.
Yeah, and Dragline breaks the man with no eyes, his glasses, and kind of breaks that, you know, hold on them.
Well, technically, Luke's the one that breaks the glasses because
it rolls.
He's in the car. Yeah,
and that smile, you know, and it's like even when he's dying, he's like, I still got what I wanted.
Yeah,
you know, the story. And then when Dragline goes back to camp and he tells everybody the story of Cool Hand Luke and how even at the end he smiled, that Luke smile, you know, the one. And even at the end, the bosses had no idea what to do with him because he won. Even in death, he won because the story of Cool Hand Luke lives on in this prison, and it gives them hope. That picture he took when he finally got out to Atlanta with the 2 showgirls or whatever, they're like, they treasure that because, look, he got out. There's stuff on the other side of these walls. There's real world that we can go to on the other side.
And even when Luke explains to like Dragline and the other prisoners that picture wasn't real. Mm-hmm. And he is like, it's a fake. It's not a real picture. And, it gets torn because it's like, you just destroyed everything that I believed in you, that you're this badass, you're this idol, you are the thing that's going to free us from this prison. And then at the end, with everything that, ultimately he gives his life, while he's in this prison. And it's just like, no, you're still our savior of this little prison in the middle of nowhere.
And with this religious symbolism, I don't know why I want to keep saying symbolism, because that's not a word.
Are you okay?
I'm having a day. With the tears in the picture, it forms a cross over Luke in a way where with his arms over the showgirls and how he's standing, it looks like he's on the cross again. And I'm like, subtlety. Thy name is not
this movie, no.
Not this movie. But yeah, so this is a really good film. Little heavy on the themes. They're a little blunt.
It's a 2-hour movie, but it moves fairly fast.
Yeah, this didn't feel like a slow film. Yeah. A lot of what it is again, it feels like a holdover from the studio era that's gotten a new Hollywood sensibility, but it hasn't perfected it yet.
Yeah.
I think overall, my only real gripes with the movie is it feels a little blunt. It's a lot of the symbolism's like very surface. A lot of the performances are a little broad. I mean, don't be wrong, I loved George Kennedy playing Dragline, but he got that real big, big
where you kind
accent.
You have to sit in there like, what did he just say?
Yeah, because he sounds like Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get he's trying to play like the bumbling Southern boy, but that's a little, this is bordering on caricature, I do say so myself. And there's a lot of the things like Babaloo's is a little too goofy, even for a goofy side character.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where the movie is great. Like, this is a great movie. Like, 9 out of 10. Easily. But it's like, there's some things about it where I'm like, this might rub people the wrong way, or it might be a little too goofy for some people now. But I would still recommend it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a fan of like new Hollywood films and you've just never gotten around to this one. If you're a fan of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, definitely watch this movie.
I mean, if you're an old Hollywood fan and you want to get into like Paul Newman films,
this is one of his great performances.
If you want to focus on like films of the 60s, prison movies, totally have to give this a watch. I'd agree. The symbolism's a little heavy. It's a little what is it that you like to say all the time? It's winking and
nudge, wink at the camera. Yeah. It's like, hey guys, you know what we're getting at here, huh? Nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah, but I think it's also a sign of the times where it's just we kind of really have to put it out there so people pick up what we're trying to throw out there.
The people in the cheap seats can see what's going on.
Yeah, versus now where you could be a little bit more subtle and were they trying to go for that? I don't know. Were we? Kind of keep that conversation going.
Oh my God, I hate that so much because there's modern movies now where they're like, "Hey, do you know what we're going for in this cool A24 art house movie?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? What are you going for?" Well, you would only know if you had 2 degrees in Eastern philosophy and German folklore. That's the only way you would totally get this movie. And I'm like, "What the fuck, dude?" I don't know what this fucking weird demon thing that only shows up in ancient Peruvian folklore. What is this thing? You gotta explain it. I need exposition sometimes.
Well, if you had the 2 degrees, you would know.
I hate that so much. Oh God, there was some movie I watched not that long ago, and it was one of those movies like that where it was like, oh, we're an artsy movie, but we're just not gonna explain anything.
Yeah. Because
it's like, it's just gonna be weird, man, and you're just gonna like roll with it. Yeah,
but I really liked Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah, Cool Hand Luke, very good movie.
No,
very enjoyable.
But, I really enjoyed the cinematography of this movie. Just beautiful landscapes. I mean, even the beginning when he's cutting down the, keep wanting
the parking meters.
I keep wanting to call them mailboxes. When he's cutting down the parking meters and they're getting really close in shots of the meters.
When the meters flick to violation.
I kept thinking, I'm like, man, this reminds me of Vertigo. Just the colors, the way that it's filmed.
Panavision, old school, Technicolor. This was the standard.
It's shooting through, the reflection of the sunglasses. I was like, wow. I'm like, they really pushed the artistic vibe on this movie, where it just feels like you're not just watching a straight-laced movie. It's like, no, you're really looking through things and experiencing things in this movie.
And that's a thing that annoys me about a lot of modern movies. This is mostly like Marvel films, right?
Yeah.
Where it feels like the cinematography or the like camera positioning, interesting shots, like they're not a lot of them are pushing the bounds of like, we're going to get really interesting shots that are going to communicate a lot of like different things and meanings and how we place the actors, the blocking. They just don't feel like that.
No.
A lot of older movies like this do, mostly because like they didn't have like green screen and other things to kind of like compensate for certain things.
Yeah.
And also like cinematography has to be a certain way when you have to incorporate like 5 different larger than life CGI characters in the frame at the same time. So handicap is given. But I really enjoyed watching this movie because it has that old school, every shot we have to compose vibe to it. But I do agree. The cinematography is very good. There's only one shot in it I thought was weird.
But overall, what is your rating on this movie?
2 thumbs up. I'm happy I got to watch it. Like this was a good pick. I didn't pick a bad movie as my pick of the month.
You did not. I mean, you still have another pick, so
I do, and I'm thinking about it. But next week is your pick.
That's right. I'm gonna be picking Princess Mononoke by Hayao Miyazaki.
Oh, shit. I'm excited. I've never seen this one.
Neither have I. I've been excited to watch this for a while. Again, like Howl's Moving Castle, I was pulled in with the music, so
yeah,
I'm hoping it's equally, beautiful story-wise and musically-wise.
Also, Miyazaki's coming out with a new film soon.
He is. I don't know if that's coming out next year or the following year, but we're hyped.
Yeah. He's now become like one of your favorite directors.
Oh, absolutely. But I think the one coming out soon is his last film.
Oh, is this his last one before he retires?
Yeah, I think this is the retiring film, so it'll be something.
Could you imagine like his retirement film? It's like completely different than the rest of his canon. He's like, finally, I can do the weird, surreal David Lynch shit I've been waiting for my whole career. He goes out on a weird one, like a really weird one. He makes Eraserhead but animated. He
does a zombie movie.
Oh, that'd be so good.
He's like, I've always wanted to jump into horror movies. Let's try it.
What would be the most ridiculous thing that Hayao Miyazaki could do as his final film? That's totally like off the grain, like out of nowhere, that you think he could actually pull off?
A Western.
I can definitely see a Miyazaki Western, like an animated Western.
That would be badass.
That'd be pretty cool.
But yeah, next week we're going to be watching Princess Mononoke. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I've never seen it. I've heard nothing but good things about it, like every Miyazaki film.
Same.
So yeah, but if they wanted to listen to that episode, where could they go? You
can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Yes, you can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube. We release new episodes every week. We release new videos at the same time. And if you wanted to follow us anywhere else, such as our socials, you can go to
the Film Club Podcast on Instagram, where we post daily stories, trivia, upcoming episodes, and just stuff on our adventures.
And with that,
we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Have a good week, everyone.